Hi friends, today my group consists of Ophelia, Farina, Tracy, Alamelu and I, Baulin, will be presenting on the current issue about rape culture entitled Silent, Blame, Shame, Rape Culture and the Criminal Justice System. So now I'll pass it to Ophelia and she will be doing the introduction about rape culture.
Thank you, Byron. Now I'd like to turn your attention to this narrative quoted from the film A Time to Kill. Can you see her raped, beaten, broken body, left to die? Can you see her? I want you to picture that little girl. Now imagine she's white. So this narrative depicts how biases and prejudices can impact the verdict of a rape crime. And this is indeed a 1996 film, but the issue of rape and justice journeys of rape victims remain the same, such that verdicts are indeed influenced by external unreasonable factors. So, according to World Population Review, rape is the most underreported crime across the globe. Statistics show that, published by World Population Review 2021, show that South Africa has the highest number of rape cases, followed by Sweden, 63.5 rape rate, then followed by United States, showing a rape rate of 27.3, and in Malaysia, according to Fernandez and Noor 2019, it, an average of 5 cases are reported each day. And in 2020, 1,721 cases of sexual crimes against children are reported. In the United States, out of that percentage, um, 9%, only 9% of perpetrators get prosecuted, while 97% of perpetrators walk free. So, despite these numbers, why do rape cases indeed go unreported? So, the reason for this can be attributed to shame, stigma, and rape myths surrounding victims of rape crime, as stated by Ahmad et al. 2020. So, for instance, the court sets a rapist free when the rapist marries the victim of rape crime. So, and this is indeed highlights the influence of rape culture and its dangerous impact on the criminal justice system, revealing the victim's suffering. Thus, the title Silence, Blame, and Shamed in the Journey for Justice. So, with that, I would now like to explain what exactly constitutes the rape culture. So, this is defined based on the model of rape culture developed by M. Burt in 1980 and expanded by Lonsway and Fitzgerald in 1995, as cited in Johnson and Johnson 2017. So, one of the 5 components within the model of rape culture is traditional gender roles. So, this is characterized by a set of assumptions formed by cultural norms and expectations on roles, responsibilities, and interests of males and females. And the next component is sexism, which is an act of stereotyping and discriminating based on gender. Thirdly, hostility toward women, which is the idea that women are not worthy to be trusted and that they have hidden motives behind all their actions. So they can go to any extent in order to get what they want. So that's the assumption. Fourthly, adversarial sexual beliefs. So this is the assumption all all sexual relationships are exploitative. For example, the idea that women use manipulative means to attain their goals while men only seek sex. And fifthly, acceptance of violence. So this is a belief that violent acts are justified and at times to the extent of being desired. So, for example, cases of rape. Instance, people justify rape crime by viewing rape myths as facts. An example can be rape does not really happen and it only happens between strangers. So, all these indeed explain what constitutes rape culture. Now, I would like to pass to Tracy to explain the Malaysian and global perspectives.
Hello, my name is Tracy, and today I'll be presenting on the Malaysian and global perspectives of rape culture. So, the Malaysian and global perspectives of rape culture is similar but also different in certain ways. When you talk about rape culture is in terms of language is usually normalized in Malaysia and also globally. For example, in terms of language, it can be like words, such as when a person, a rape victim comes forward, they're usually questioned on how were they dressed. They should dress a certain way. They shouldn't dress like this. They should instead dress like that, and they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't, their experience and struggle usually are downplayed, and besides that, they are usually blamed for what happened to them. Besides that, when we talk about language, it also includes rape jokes. For example, when uh, rape jokes like, "Hey, did you see the team yesterday on the field? They were totally getting raped by the other team." Or when somebody goes out, some people might say, "Hey, don't get raped." Instead of telling them to not rape, they say, "Hey, don't get raped." So it's being normalized everywhere. Rape culture is basically sexual violence being normalized, justified, and accepted, and not challenged. So as you can see in these two examples given, the 17-year-old Malaysian student Ain, who uh, called out her teacher who made a rape joke. They were having a discussion in class regarding sexual harassment, and they were talking about how minors are being protected by the laws, and he interjected and mentioned, if you want to rape someone, make sure they are above 18. And there's also another movement in that happened in the US called slut walk, was because it was sparked from the from an police officer who advised female students to not dress like a slut in order to avoid getting raped. However, there are certain differences. Rape culture can also be like an example, like men do not get raped. However, as you can see, in the Malaysian law, it states that rape is defined under Section 375 of the Penal Code, a man having sexual intercourse with a woman against her will or without her consent. So it's basically the traditional way of defining rape. When you look at the French law under Article 222-23, it states that rape is defined as any act of sexual penetration of any nature whatsoever committed against another person by violence, constraint, threat, or surprise is rape. So it's promoting gender equality under the French law and going against the rape culture of men do not get raped. So this perspective is different comparing between the Malaysian law and also the French law. So I'll be passing on to the next presenter.
Right. So to explain the reasons as to why a rape may occur, there exists the general model of rape by Matthews in 2014, which emphasizes the factors that lead up to a rape case. So in this model, it is stated that there are three general factors: the psychophysiological pathology, social-cultural forces, and victim precipitation. Now, under the umbrella of psychophysiological pathology, there exists a myriad of subfactors. One of it includes the cognitive dysfunction of hostile and disordered thinking. Now, based on a study in 2013, it was found that a predominant and overwhelming motivation was found to be sexual aggression in these rapists. In addition to that, in 2017, it was actually found that extensive use of pornography was found to have a significant positive correlation with that of sexual aggression. Um, to further elaborate, it was also determined that those with disordered criminal thinking, in addition to criminogenic cognitions, were more likely to commit sexual crimes. Criminogenic cognitions in this context would be related to that of distorted scripts, which implies the existence of a rape schemata. Now, a rape schemata, on the other hand, would imply the existence of developed organized cognitions in terms of carrying out rape acts. Now, the second factor is social cultural forces. Social cultural practices and lifestyles in general actually influences and establishes the behavior patterns of individuals, groups, and even society as a whole. In those who endure the norms, beliefs, and lifestyles actually play a role in terms of establishing the background for the emergence of new behavior. Both positive and negative behaviors are found to actually be influenced by this background, be it directly or indirectly. With that being said, rape is no exception. So examples of these subfactors include that of lifestyles, indecent portrayal of women in mass media, and the acceptance of rape myths. Now, on the topic of indecent portrayal of women, based on the cue theory of progression, it is said that cues present in the environment precipitate the aggressive tendencies of these individuals. In addition to that, the exposure towards pornography alongside abusive self-exposure made by women in the entertainment industry actually cues these individuals in terms of indulging in sexual crimes. This form of indecent exposure actually may actually represent as a invitation that these women extend to men to commit acts of crime, although not consciously intended by the women in the exposure act, but which inadvertently cues men with underlying pathology or men with bordering aggressive and violent personality in general. Now, in terms of rape myths, as stated by Barkin, rape myth can be briefly described as the myth that women ask or deserve to be raped by the way that they dress and or behave and therefore precipitate their own victimization. This actually means that if a woman were to dress attractively, drinks, or walk into a bar, she actually wants to have sex. Unfortunately, most rape cases actually don't consist of signs of physical trauma, and what people consider to be appropriate dress attire or dress actually suggests sexual behavior is actually quite subjective and very individualistic. It may be implied that a woman may want to engage in sexual activity, but in reality, that is not the case at all. Um, Real rape in this context is an example of how individuals choose to objectify the people around them and thus allowing them to justify their own violent and or abrasive actions. Now, the last factor would be victim precipitation, which, to put it brief, is basically blaming the victim for their own victimization, which basically means that the idea of the person's actions, decisions, word exchanges, and so on was what resulted in them getting raped. Now, examples of this include nonverbal behavior of body exposure, challenges and reprimands, and provocative dress and lustful gestures. To further elaborate on this, the problem lies in the idea of gender polarization, which plays a huge role in terms of victimization of women. Reason for this is because it's actually used to justify the behavior of men in terms of violence and aggressiveness. With that being said, that is the end for this section. I will now hand it over to my groupmates.
Thank you, Farina. Now moving on to the prevention, which is based on the social cognitive model by Albert Bandura, which looks at a triadic relationship between behavior, social and environmental factors, as well as personal or cognition factors. Where behavior in this sense of for rape is that how to actually prevention of rape, which is actually a behavior, and then for the personal factors which actually influence the from the person itself. So things can be done in a sense that on how to implement awareness of rape in oneself to either conduct rape or become a victim of rape, or what can be done in a person. So which actually looks at the attitude of the person as well as their perception on anything that's based on them. So for that, psychoeducation is one of the best things which is actually reflected by researchers as well, because psychoeducation teaches one to actually on how to be aware of the rape, on how bad is it, because awareness is needed in order for them to either become a victim or also not to conduct a rape, because awareness is needed in themselves as a person. And then moving on to the social and environmental factors, which actually looks at like gender or social norms and gender inequalities, and as well as peer influence by the which falls under the social and as well as environmental factors. For this, social lobbying can be done because in a society it is needed, because one actually gets this ideas, or they might actually be influenced by their society that they live in. So to prevent rape in the sense of looking at social and environmental factors, what can be done is social lobbying to create awareness among themselves, and also regarding this social norms that sees like women as a weaker one, and man has a superior in a relationship, and man has superiority in anything they do. So things like that could actually reflect on a person, even though they are the social as well as environmental factors, but it does reflect on a person in a which actually can reflect towards their personal factors that could actually, or in order all this can reflect one's behavior. So for this, what can be done is that social lobbying can be done where awareness is created, and then policy recommendation, because if policies and laws are stricter, you could actually policy recommendation and the implementation of laws that actually enforces all this. So one need to live in a society harmoniously, so they tend to follow what is in their society. Moving on to the another one, what can be done under social and environmental factors is edutainment, because in this today's generation, education and as well as media, social media goes really well. So educational messages can be implemented as well as be subsidized towards one by putting up all these posters, having awareness talk on how to have a good relationship and how to prevent rape and all that through social media. So all this can actually reflect on one's behavior, which is actually to prevent rape in this sense. So with that, in conclusion, this can be seen as a theoretical framework that could actually help to prevent rape. So that's all from me, and then the next will be on conclusion, which will be presented by Baolin. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Baolin, so I'll be doing the conclusion for this issue. To sum up, rape incidents need to be emphasized comprehensively, such as education-wise, media and parents, spreading the right knowledge and awareness in order to break the stigma, such as rape myths and victim blaming. On the other hand, rape cases should not be blaming on women only based on how they dress and how they behave, but men also have the responsibility on rape issues since they are the most benefit from rape. Hence, sexual education is needed in school to change on how a society will on rape. It is also a most fundamental way to decrease the rape rate in a country. When the foundation change, that is inculcating the right values within society, then automatically it will bring out a positive impact in the justice system. Because everything is interrelated, so as a result, rape victim will be able to attain justice without re-traumatized in their journey for justice. That's all from us. Thank you.